I'm joined by John Hawkins, who runs Right Wing News and Linkiest. He is a top conservative commentator and coming at this completely pragmatically and not coming at this even from a religious perspective at all. He's written an article, Why This Former Trump Fan Doesn't Support Him Anymore. John, welcome back to The Line of Fire. Thanks so much for joining us.
Michael, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much. I enjoyed doing your show a lot last time.
Yes, and it was great to get your insight and input. First, tell me why you've liked Donald Trump in the past.
Well, I felt like I should give him a full chance and listen to what he had to say, and I really appreciated the fact that he's very politically incorrect. He's charismatic. He's very refreshing. I enjoyed the fact that he changed the debate on immigration. I think that he changed the way we're talking about it. I don't think he used the best words to do it when you're talking about, rapists coming over the border, that type of thing. It didn't necessarily sound great, but he made a difference. I appreciate the fact that he changed the way that we're talking about Muslim immigration. Now, I don't agree with his proposal that we should ban Muslims from coming here. I don't even know how you would do it. It would be very difficult, but I think the fact that we're having a discussion about that issue now is good for us. It's something that's long overdue, and it might make it possible, for example, for something that Cruz has proposed, to stop people coming over from countries that are overrun with ISIS and Al-Qaeda. That might make it possible. So there's a lot of things I do like about him. I've met him. He's a very gracious guy, very nice, and a lot of charisma. So he does have his strong points.
And you also like his Art of the Deal book, correct?
I loved it. Thought it was a great book. I've done best of quote articles on Donald Trump before. I've written some nice columns about him.
Yeah, and I've read the best of quotes, absolutely followed you along those lines. Now, before we discuss some of the issues in terms of why you feel he's not electable, because I'll often hear people saying, especially evangelical Christians, hey, I like Ted Cruz, I like Marco Rubio, but they could never beat Hillary, so we got to vote for Trump. Obviously, you can blow that out of the water in many ways, but what was it that caused you now to go ahead and write this article?
Well, I think the thing is, for me, I was willing to give him a chance on a lot of this. I was willing to consider it and say, hey, is this a guy I should think about? But it did never enter my mind that I would stick with him no matter what. When I start looking at his poll numbers and saying, hey, they're this bad, when I start listening to the things he says and saying, man, he's going to keep making gaffes, when I start looking at him and saying, I'm willing to let him convince me he's a conservative, but he has changed parties 5 times, and I don't see a lot of people who have like a midlife 65-year-old conversion to conservatism. And, what he's telling you, he's the most conservative guy out there, and you can trust me on all this stuff. And we decided, and he's changed his positions on some of these things from week to week. And so for me, I was willing to give him an opportunity and listen to what he had to say, but he didn't actually take care of any of these things. He didn't allay any of the concerns I had initially.
Yeah. All right. So now just on the pragmatic level about whether he's electable or not, I know you've raised issues in the past, in recent weeks, about funding, which may sound strange to many because he's a billionaire, but the funding issue and then the likability issue. Fill us in on those.
Well, first of all, funding. He's a very, very rich guy, but not compared to what it takes to run for the presidency. If he was running for the House or the Senate, you wouldn't have to have any worries about him funding it. For the presidency, Hillary Clinton and the super PAC supporting her will crack $3 billion. Now that, if you took away the value of his name, is almost the value of his entire fortune. So you got to ask yourself, what is he going to sell? If he's telling you he's going to sell fund, is he going to sell Trump Tower? Is he going to sell his golf courses? What is he going to get rid of? And could he even do that? So there's that to begin with. So that's number one. On his electability numbers, he has really, really bad numbers. Now, sometimes with favorability and unfavorability, you can look at a candidate and say, all right, well, they don't have the greatest numbers, but people don't know them very well. And when people don't know a candidate very well, they tend to not like them, and then they can get better later. Trump, they know very well. He has a 33% favorability rating and a 58% unfavorability rating. Just to give you an idea of how bad that is, that's what Jimmy Carter's numbers were in early 1980. It's worse than Walter Mondale. He has a higher unfavorability rating than Richard Nixon after Watergate.
Mm.
So you will often hear people talk about electability. That's something the establishment loves to do. It's like, oh, you can't vote for Pat Toomey because Arlen Specter's more electable. Or you can't vote for Rand Paul. Alan Grayson's more electable. They do this all the time. But, if you look at the numbers and say, well, they may be right this time. It's kind of like Christine O'Donnell, who I like Christine O'Donnell. I like her a lot. I think she'd probably have made a nice senator. But when you looked at her numbers, at least I did, the reason I didn't support her when her race came out was I looked at it and concluded she was unelectable. Turned out to be right. And I'm telling you, with Trump, if he wasn't Donald Trump, there is absolutely nobody who would look at the numbers he has and would think he would have any shot at all to become elected. I'll say this, it would be easier to rehabilitate Enron's image than it would be to make him president.
All right, strong statement, and I'm sure you've said it with a lot of forethought. One last minute, for another Republican candidate, what would be their path to victory, and who could the candidate be potentially, in your mind, that could win it all?
Well, I think Cruz can. I think Cruz can win Iowa. There's a poll out today showing him winning. The big question about Iowa right off the bat is that the polling that they're doing, some of them Cruz is ahead, Trump's been ahead more of them, but a lot of times they're assuming this historic wave of turnout. And Trump, unfortunately, for him, does not have much of a ground game. He doesn't do a lot of the traditional campaign things. There's a lot of questions whether he can pull it off. So I think you could see Trump come in second in Iowa. Cruz could come in second in New Hampshire, and then it's an even-Steven ball game. Unless somebody else can get enough momentum to place really well, maybe win one of these contests or surpass Ted Cruz, I think it's probably going to be Cruz or Trump. Now, you never know, but if I were betting, those look like one of those two guys is going to pull it off.
And you think, just a couple seconds, do you think that Trump could say something or do something that would actually turn off some of his followers?
I think he could. Yeah, absolutely. I think these things turn off more people than you realize, and he definitely turns off a lot of people who aren't supporting him.
Yep.
I would not count him out doing something that makes people very upset, especially if he loses.
Right. That would be a big question. If he loses, what happens to the venom, the anger, the insults? Hey, John, thanks as always for your expert commentary. Much appreciated.
Michael, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you, my friends.